Hello, and welcome to the Ag Culture Podcast, where we share insights about the future of agriculture. Each week, we dive into the stories, technologies, and ideas shaping a profitable and sustainable future for farms and rural communities alike. I'm Paul Windemuller, host of the Ag Culture Podcast, and today I have another solo episode, and I'm doing something a little differently. Now, as many of you know, if you follow along on my personal LinkedIn page, you've probably seen I've been doing a lot of travel, almost a year now, but really a lot since the beginning of 2026. And I've had a lot of you reach out and say, hey, what are you up to? Where are you going? What have you been learning at these conferences and events that you've been going to? And I thought since so many of you were reaching out to ask that, it would make a great episode topic. So in today's episode, I'm going to just spend some time talking about the rooms that I've been in, the places that I've been at, and the people I've been talking with, and a lot of really what the big ideas coming out of that are. I've been talking with a lot of farmers, a lot of co-op leaders, processors, technology companies, researchers, and people really diving deep into the systems that make agriculture function around the world. Now, I want to start out by telling you exactly where I've been over the last 6 months of 2026, because I think that'll give you some context to the geography, at least, and some of the people that I've been talking with more particularly. So I started 2026 at FarmCon in Kansas City back in January. I also spent some time visiting with some large dairy farms out in Kansas as well, talking to them about how they're implementing AI on farm. Now, FarmCon is geared a little bit more toward the row crop sectors in the United States, but there was some livestock influence there as well. And they do focus a lot on markets, and really appreciated that perspective, because a lot of the conferences that I go to are on more the scientific and research end of things. So it was nice to hear a little bit more on the market, on how people that are looking at markets really see technology adoption as well as changing management styles of farm businesses. Now, from there, I spent some time, almost a month, in New Zealand, traveling around the country, doing some lectures at the universities there, but also lectures to the general public on AI adoption. And I had the opportunity to have many, many meetings with farmer leaders, as well as checkoff style or levy, what they call levy body organizations, as well as other industry players that are really trying to figure out, what does the future of agriculture look like in the context of artificial intelligence, new technologies, and all of these great things that are emerging? How do we bring it together? That was really the question that we were discussing. Now, from there, I went out to San Francisco to the World Agritech Summit, which I did several episodes interviewing many of the people that were there. That was a great experience. Again, more focused on row crop production and horticulture. If you're interested in getting a lot more in-depth into the conversations I had there, check out the previous episodes that aired back in mostly the end of March and in April. Then after that, it was the Animal Agritech Summit down in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, which was very similar to the World Agritech Summit, only it was focused on livestock. So I had the opportunity to meet up with several friends down there that I had gotten to know, and several companies that I had gotten to know as well, that we've interviewed on the podcast, to catch up with them and the work that they were doing, as well as being able to host a roundtable discussion there. After that, I participated in Dairy Farmers of America's annual meeting, and that was really cool. I love being a part of the leadership of DFA and being involved from a farmer owner standpoint. I had many great conversations there across the dairy industry, and really appreciate Dennis Rodenbaugh's perspective, who's the CEO of DFA, his perspective on AI and his eagerness to utilize so much of the data that the industry has to use it to really drive efficiencies for the co-op across the country. A couple weeks after that, I was at the U.S. Dairy Alliance Sustainability Conference in Chicago, again talking with many players in the dairy industry in the U.S., from processors, retailers, and farmer organizations, on how we utilize data to be able to show the great job that dairy farming and the dairy industry is doing in terms of efficiency, in terms of animal welfare and health, and in terms of what a great product that we produce to really drive a sustainable future for U.S. dairy. Then at the end of May, I had the opportunity to go down to Brazil, check out the episodes that I did with Marcelo Carvalho, who is the CEO of Milk Point, which is the organization that put on the Milk Pro Summit down in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And by the time this episode airs, I will be heading back to New Zealand to speak at the New Zealand Primary Industry Conference in Auckland. That will be happening right after this episode airs. So that was my travel itinerary for the first 6 months of 2026. Now, for what I learned, that's the important part, right? I can do all this travel and meet all these great people, but what truly did I learn that I can pass on to you guys? That is the point of this episode, right? I think the first theme that I want to bring up is many of us on our operations have invested in new technologies, and a lot of those new technologies have brought about bringing us a lot of data to utilize on our farms. So in many cases, we're drowning in data, but we are still struggling across sectors, across countries, all around the world to make usable insights from that data. This is one of the biggest things I continue to hear as I travel around the world is, hey, I've got all this data. You talk about data a lot. I've got data. How do I put it in a way, in a format that can be utilized to bring it together to actually make a return on investment or better decisions, better insights for managing my operation? And again, we're talking about the data that's sitting in herd software systems, milking systems, feed systems, genetic programs, your financial digital tools. A lot of your equipment is gathering data. You have processor portals where your end product is going. They give data back to you a lot of times. You have sustainability and compliance programs. You have animal health records. Maybe it's Excel spreadsheets, and probably still a few handwritten notebooks lying on the office desk or somewhere around the farm. So we're talking about lots of fragmented data and lots of different formats. So bringing that together. And that's one area I'm really excited to see how quickly AI is being able to take in information. I mean, you look at even something that you can do on an LLM today that you couldn't do 6 months ago, where it can scrape pictures and files and notebooks that you take pictures of and give you feedback and insight just from that. But at the end of the day, the data only becomes valuable when it is connected to a decision. And that's where we need to get to. That's where we need to continue to push all of our suppliers. And that's where we need to continue to experiment and play around with AI technologies that allow us to bring that together to make good decisions. That's our job. That's not going to get passed off to AI. We need to have good judgment and make good decisions. But we can do it much more effectively and much quicker because of some of the new technologies through AI coming out. Now, I know I'm guilty of this. I talk a lot about artificial intelligence. Yes, that's one thing I'm really intrigued about. And if you go to any agricultural conference in the last 6 months, everybody's talking about AI. There's been an AI talk pretty much at every conference that I've been at. And part of that's probably because I'm usually the one speaking about AI, so that would make sense. But still, every agenda that I see come across my desk for different conferences, everybody is talking about artificial intelligence. But because of what I just talked about, I see AI not as the starting point, but as an amplifier. Another thing that I saw as I went around to a lot of these conferences with people that are talking about AI, a lot of times it's very vague in how they're talking about AI adoption. And some of that's good reason. We really don't know a lot of the use cases that AI will be used for in the future. We know that, right? But I think what's most effective and what most people want to hear are specific examples. Like when I go to New Zealand, there might be an AI tool that helps to estimate pasture covers. Now it can really help cut down on the time to go around the farm and measure pasture covers. Maybe it's developing a tool as an HR assistant to help you do scheduling more effectively for milking routines, or being able to evaluate your milking crew based off of their performance that you've seen and has been analyzed by AI on a camera. These are very specific examples. And I think the more specific we can get, it helps stimulate ideas in our mind, how we can play around and potentially use AI. But those examples that I just gave are really, how do we save some time, right? But I think the biggest bang for the buck that AI is going to bring about is being able to help us make better informed decisions. If I can take all my reproductive data together and look at it over a 5-year trend and really dig into it and look at weather patterns and all of these different things combined, now I can get much more insight on, well, if we have a heat event, I probably shouldn't use a bull that doesn't seem to have as good of a conception rate if I want to get the cows bred. Or maybe I can do specific analysis on individual cows and when the optimum time for that specific cow is to get bred, rather than just having a blanket voluntary waiting period for the whole herd and working off of that. So getting more granular and insight to be able to make management decisions at a more granular level. Trust is the underlying infrastructure in all of this that's coming about. That word trust keeps coming up again and again. I think this is really one of the big reasons why technology adoption has been slow and AI adoption has been potentially slower than it should have been, is because farmers aren't anti-technology. I mean, most farmers are willing to use technology when it works, right? When it fits their business or where they understand the value coming from. But more and more people in agriculture are asking, who has access to my data? Can I get it back? Can it be used against me? Can it be sold? Can it be aggregated? Can it be used by regulators? Can it be used by companies to negotiate against me? If I share this, what do I get in return? I think these are very important questions that we need to ask in agriculture, especially the farmers that are generating most of this data. You've spent the money on the technology to get the data. And as I dive into conversations with farmers around the world, I think the clear message that I heard is that farmers aren't opposed to sharing data, but most farmers are opposed to losing control of that data that they generate. And I think that distinction really matters because we're not looking at the roadblock of farmers not ever sharing the data in order to progress as an industry. It's really looking at what are the risks to the farmer that shares the data and what are the rewards and opportunities of them sharing that data. But if us as farmers feel exposed or captured or unclear on how the data will be used, that really important word that I mentioned, trust, disappears very quickly, right? And once that trust is gone, it's very hard to get it back. Another theme, kind of piggybacking on that last one, is the incentives are misaligned across the value chain. Now, I think a good example of this is where in the US we look at the beef on dairy supply chain. A farmer may make a genetic decision that benefits the feedlot and processor later on, but they don't have a feedback loop or an incentive to make sure that that cow gets bred to the right bull to produce the right beef calf. If they make the right decision, if they make the best decision from a productivity standpoint, it's usually the feedlot that really benefits from it because they get paid by the processor based on how the animal carcass gets graded. And they also usually see the biggest financial benefit on growth rates from the feed yard. So I really think if the value chain wants better data, better traceability, better consistency, and better sustainability proof, then the economics have to work for the people being asked to do the work and make the investment. Otherwise, this adoption is going to stall and we don't create these efficiencies in the supply chain that are available. I think many farmers really do care about the industry, care about the sector of farming that they're in. But at the end of the day, they have to make payroll, they have to feed their animals, they have to manage weather issues and handle debt and keep their business alive. So if we want participation, the value has to be very clear at the farmer level. Said very simply, it has to have some sort of a financial impact at the farm level. Now, another theme that I saw, especially at the agri-tech summits, were the technology providers that had the strongest uptake and the strongest technologies. What they did was solve painful problems as simply as possible. They may reduce labor, they may catch problems earlier, they may improve feed efficiency, they may help make better decisions faster. And a lot of them fit into how people are working already on the farm. I think there's a lot of different ag tech companies that come out, they have great, really cool technology, but don't truly understand the operational struggles of the sector that they're trying to apply that technology in. And they just can't make that fit. And then they don't go anywhere. There's no adoption. I know I had a couple episodes this year from technology companies that did this really well. They took a simple, painful problem in agriculture and came up with a simple solution. And those companies really took off. They really grew. If you're listening to this podcast, take that to heart and do your research. Don't just make up some cool technology in Silicon Valley somewhere or some really cool software. Go out to the farms, figure out what are their problems, what do they need, and how do we do it simply, and how do we put that into the workflows that are already on the farm. That's how you're going to drive the greatest adoption. All right. Now, I said I went to the U.S. Dairy Sustainability Conference, and for years, all across agriculture, not just in the dairy industry, we've been told as farmers we need to tell our stories better. And I can agree with that to a certain point. But I think the next phase is not just storytelling. I think now with the data that we have and the systems that are coming out that allow us to utilize the data to actually tell that story, to give the picture of what is going on, it's proving how we're conducting ourselves as farmers. In a world where customers and our processors and governments and even lenders are asking for more documentation on what we're doing, there is an obvious danger of giant piles of paperwork that are pushed on farmers to prove this, right? But there's also an opportunity now with technology to make that simple. And if it's done right, sustainability proof can help good farmers document what they already are doing. That technology can reduce duplicate audits and simplify compliance and potentially create new value through better contracts. Now, the real thing to watch in the coming days is this reporting going to really stay a burden, or is this a business case for better profitability on the farm? I think if it's the former, farmers will still resist it. If it becomes a way to reduce friction and prove good work and protect market access, then it becomes much more useful. The last thing I want to talk about is one of the big projects that I've been working on since finishing my Nuffield scholarship back in October is around data cooperation. And I think this is a very big strategic issue all across agriculture. Agriculture needs competition because competition drives innovation. But I believe agriculture also needs shared infrastructure, especially when it comes to data and the AI revolution. I don't really think we need 40 different groups solving the same basic data cleaning, permissioning, verification, and reporting problems in 40 different ways. It's expensive, it's confusing, and I think it burns a lot of the trust across the industry. But in terms of data and insight, there's a lot of questions around what should be proprietary, what should be shared, what should be governed, and how it should be governed, and what should regulators not have casual access to. Those are big questions that are being asked right now, and there's a lot of conversations. Many of the conferences that I went to are talking about this topic. How do we have a shared infrastructure across agriculture that can protect farmers in this new age and also drive industry-wide or sector-wide insights that are useful across the supply chain? I had a conversation about this a couple of weeks ago with Nate Zwald. You can go check that episode out. That really dives into this subject a little bit more in detail and the case around dairy genetics in the U.S. But I will be talking about this more in depth from different angles and different sectors across agriculture, because this is something that we need to get figured out. We don't have endless time to get this figured out. It's something that we're dealing with right now. And if we don't deal with it from a farmer perspective, in my opinion, it's going to be captured by another player in our sectors or industry, which will allow as much control and governance from the farmers that provide the data. All right, so to wrap up, I want to step back from all these conversations and conferences that I was at and just say, I think we're going to see more AI, more automation, more sensors, more traceability, but also more pressure and more complexity. But I also want to make the point that the farms and organizations that win will not simply be the ones with the most technology. They will be the ones that can simplify this complexity that we're dealing with, the ones that can build trust and maintain it, the ones that can connect systems to provide greater insights and more value from the data that they have, and the ones that still understand the daily reality of farming. So the future of agriculture is not just about having better technology tools. It's going to be about better coordination through the whole system. So I hope you enjoyed hearing about the things that I've been learning and the itinerary of my year so far, the opportunities that I had. I met so many great people. I feel so blessed to be able to do what I do right now and just go around and speak, meet new people, and talk about what I'm passionate about in agriculture. So I just wanted to throw this out there too. For the second half of 26 and early 27, I do have a couple of speaking engagements already lined up. But if you are on a committee to put together a conference for your sector, if you need somebody to speak on AI, please reach out. I really enjoy having these conversations and being involved at these conferences. Also, I just wanted to say a quick thank you to our friends of the show that help support what we do here at Ag Culture. Check them out through our newsletter or our website, and thank you once again to those companies. So with that, we will see you next week for another exciting episode of the Ag Culture Podcast. Thanks for listening.